Hello to you all, this is Gospel British Isles, and today I'm going to be talking about the subject of the moral and spiritual state of England and the UK, and also, are we out of it? I've always been an observer of, the state of our country, looking into all the different institutions, looking into the politicians and the parties and the royals, and entertainment and sports, looking at, interested in what the elites of society are doing in law and judiciary, what's happening amongst, everyday working class people in all the different parts of the country. I've always been an observer of these things. And again, the reason being is I like to know what the problem is and seek to help bring people out of, of that state or help heal the nation as much as I can. And I think to do that, you must be able to diagnose a problem and then, bring the solution. We know the solution is the gospel. And that's what I'm seeking to bring. But today I'm going to look at the moral state and the spiritual state of the country, and then we'll look at it in a positive way. We can all be involved in helping the nation come out of this state. So it says this in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1 and verse 6. It said, "From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment." Now the prophet Isaiah here is describing the moral and spiritual state of Israel at around 700 BC. And the moral and spiritual state of Israel at this time, although obviously very different nations at very different times, we can both agree that this text speaks to both. From the sole of the foot, even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment. And again, I'm going to read from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, and from verse 18. It says this: John had said to Herod, that's John the Baptist, John had said to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Therefore Herodias held it against him and wanted to kill him, but she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just and holy man, and he protected him. The church should be full of boldness and spiritual authority, and should be able to hold, the powers that be, the rulers, the kings, the prime ministers, the politicians, hold them all to account and hold the nation to account. But that's not the way it is. Herod, he feared John. He had respect for John. Do the royals, do the elites, do the politicians, do people in society fear the church? I don't think they do. Do they see the church as just and holy? I don't think they do at all. The true church in our country now, let's be absolutely honest, the actual true church is a very small minority. A very small minority of in this country. And it wasn't always like that. And that's why the country is in such a state as it is today. You go back to, the late 1800s or the early 1900s, and you had so many true Bible-believing Christians, and the church had authority and spoke with authority, to the powers that be and into this nation. But over 100 years, that's massively declined, and the true church is a very small minority of people. And I hope for you, if you are a true Christian, I do hope that the people around you see you as holy, as just, and that they see you as somebody that speaks boldly and with authority. But the church as a whole isn't like that, particularly our main denomination in our country, the Church of England. Now, the Church of England, if you don't know, over 40% of the leadership within the Church of England identify as being gay, and huge amounts of their leaders are more than happy to bless same-sex marriage. Feminism has been embraced by them for years. They've been ordaining women as leaders, and right now you have the first female archbishop of the Church of England, and right now they are fighting a lot of they're trying to deal with a huge issues in terms of sexual abuse. I think 383 allegations of sexual abuse that they are working through and trying to deal with. And again, there's many things you could look about with the Church of England in terms of their, christenings and baptizing children, things which are totally unbiblical. But they've become so worldly, and instead of them being priests of God, reflecting Jesus Christ, they are priests of wokeness. And not only are they reflecting the world, they're reflecting the worst parts of our world and culture around us today. And it's same can be said about other huge denominations such as the Methodist Church and the Salvation Army. These aren't a shadow of what they once were, and that's the state of things in terms of Christianity, if you like, in the nation. Now, the powers that be, whether that be the royal family or whether that be the elites or whether that be our politicians, they look at these institutions and they see them what they are. They don't fear them. They see how corrupt that they are, and they don't have any regard for them, and they'll stand up in Parliament and they'll ridicule Christianity publicly, and nothing is said, nothing is done. There's no rebuke, there's no correction coming from ministers within these organizations, to call them out. They spend all the time speaking about normally left-wing sort of opinions and wanting to use their voice for a sort of left-wing political ideas, things that they want to promote, not things to do with righteousness and holiness according to God. Now, I've talked about Herod there, and Herod was obviously the king in Israel, and we have a royal family. How have they, behaved? How have they held themselves? I know they're held in high esteem in the eyes of many, particularly William and Kate at the minute. They are lifted up as being, pinnacles of virtue. But what's the royal family actually like? Well, many of them are Masons. During the time when they redefined marriage, where was the Queen there, who was supposed to be a devout Christian? Where was she to stand up and speak and say no, just like John the Baptist? No, this is unlawful, this is wicked, this is wrong, this is going to bring God's judgment upon us. God hates this. There was nowhere to be seen. Now, we know the things that took place with Charles, how Charles was living in an adulterous relationship with Camilla behind the back of his wife Diana, and we know the things that have come out recently about Andrew, his close relationship with the paedophile Epstein, and all the wicked things he's been engaging with young girls and prostitutes and all this sexual immorality, all this vice, all this sinfulness and wickedness. And, you know, look at what's been happening with our government over many, many years, constantly changing laws, things which were seen to be taboo, things that were seen to be sinful and also illegal, then being legalized, such as homosexuality, such as abortion. Very recently, 2010, redefining marriage. Instead of it being a union between a man and a woman, it being a union between any two people, whether they're the same sex or not. And all this is great wickedness, and the constant pushing of LGBT and the transsexual movement. How we had leaders of our country, prime ministers, unwilling to say what a woman was. It's just so immoral and so wicked and so corrupt. And this is the state of things. Now, we see it in all different institutions, don't we? And we see that in all our TV shows, and we see that in the movies that are produced, all the violence, all the sexual immorality. We see them producing movies that promote adultery, and we see that also in the news and in the news articles, promoting adultery to be something actually to be desired, and they call it having a fling, having an affair, and they make it a kind of a very sensual and enjoyable thing for women to sort of get involved in. Now, again, this is just great wickedness and great evil, and we see this also in the sports, particularly in violent sports like boxing. Now, I know there's always been boxing. It's a very ancient sport, and like there's been restrictions and then restrictions taken off. But with all this like cage fighting, they call it MMA, and right now you've had this misfits boxing, where it's just pulling together YouTubers and different celebrities to fight each other for entertainment. And you've got these women, some of them often porn stars and things like that, fighting other women who are involved in selling their bodies, selling pictures of themselves and things like this, and to fight each other. And right now you're seeing the promotion of bare knuckle boxing, and they want restrictions to come off bare knuckle boxing to make that a form of entertainment. Now, this shows me that this nation has really, really gone very, very depraved, that people, for their own enjoyment and for their own pleasure, want to watch people engage in this sort of violent sport for their own entertainment. And again, you've even had men who identify as a women going into boxing rings with women and pulverizing them. And this is supposed to be sport. This is supposed to be entertainment. This is immoral. This is a moral disorder. This is depravity. This is a wicked and terrible state that our country's in. And we see that all over, with pornography, and it's absolutely everywhere. And even the fashions of today, the fashions that many of the women are the leading fashion icons of the West, it's all sexual immorality. It's nakedness. It's showing off their naked bodies by putting on some clothes, see-through clothes, often revealing clothes, sexually explicit clothing, and presenting it to be, to be the stylish and to be cool and to be relevant. And again, this is further shows the immorality of today. We've got big institutions like the BBC who are being caught out for their bias and their outright lies. The state of the country is in a terrible state. Witchcraft is so prevalent. It's so prevalent amongst people, and it's seen to be absolutely fine. If a woman comes out and says they're a witch or they practice witchcraft, it's fine. People are interested in that stuff, and it's so widespread. The rise of paganism and Druidism, and the rise of Islam in our land, in our nation, the rise of all the mosques throughout. Again, this is immorality. This is a false god. This is sinfulness and wickedness, and it's throughout the whole nation. And, there's so much that can be said. We are a nation which calls good evil and evil good. We are. The good, the good that's in this nation, the righteous principles and standards of true Christians are mocked and ridiculed and attacked, where wickedness is celebrated and promoted throughout the nation. Violence is everywhere. Knife crime and robberies and drug dealing and all these things are so prevalent in society. And again, sexual sin is rife. Sex outside of marriage is rife. And, marriage between a man and a woman is not embraced nowhere near as it used to be, or valued like it used to be. Now, there's so much that can be said, but again, I'm just trying to use this as an opportunity just to express to you all just the moral and spiritual state of the country. The overwhelming majority of people in this country aren't Christians. They're in unbelief, and unbelief is sin. And the darkness, the ignorance to God, the ignorance to the truth is so widespread. What is the solution? Well, that's the diagnosis. I've diagnosed this country to be spiritually and morally corrupt, to be in absolute disorder. What's the solution? Well, the solution is to start with us, the true Christians, you and me, true born-again Christians. And what we need to do, we need to acknowledge the fact that the nation is the way it is, and the true church is the way it is, just a small minority of people. We need to come together. We need to pray. We need to follow the Lord Jesus Christ in all his teachings, in all his commands, and we need to edify each other, to build each other up, to support each other for the work of the gospel in this nation. We need to support missionaries in this nation. We need to be we need to be welcoming to missionaries coming from other nations to serve here and supporting them. We need to be serious about building our church communities and discipling each other and discipling those who come in. And we need to be very active in gospel preaching, in open air preaching and evangelism in all its forms. And we need to be a people who is seriously gonna pray for the state of the country, and we're going to be very active in following Jesus and preaching the gospel. That's my message on this subject. And again, I hope it blesses you. I hope it encourages you. It's from the heart. It's from the heart. It's from what's in me on this topic, and I hope that you'll embrace it, and I hope you'll pray and you'll get to work as well, and do your bit for the kingdom of God in this nation and obviously the world. God bless you.